Hello everyone, JamieStarr here with the New World News Network. On this episode, it's going to be a lengthy one. I'm going to get into some of the Young Turks nonsense. It was a request made by a viewer, and I do love appeasing my viewers. So, I'm going to get into, because all of the show clips have been ripped apart by amazing people, like Atheism is Unstoppable. In fact, this first 5-minute clip is one of his that I'm going to show, and he handles them perfectly, but I'm going to use this to lay the precedent going forth, where I'm going to get into the Dinesh D'Souza Cenk debate that was at Politicon, and I'm just going to use this so we have a agenda established, how the Young Turks and the leftists will say one thing, but it isn't applied equally across the board, even though they claim they're championing equality. And I want to end equality. That's what I'm calling for. Like I mentioned in a previous video, it is amazing to me that we send children to schools that strip away all their individuality, homogenize them, make them all into one, this cult mind. I even have a theory. Someone, if you're into etymology and how words break down, university. You know, in Spanish, ver is to view, uni being one. I have this lingering feeling that university can be broken down into a saying of basically seeing the world as one. Like it is a cult program. You know, that's why you put the box on. Everyone's heard the phrase, be out of the box, don't be such a square. Yet when you graduate, they put a box on your head. You are now in the box. And it's all symbolic of that. Graduations are giant rituals. But if anyone knows the word history of university, if that does break down into one worldview, let me know. Because I can't seem to figure it out on my own. Anyway, end of equality. Equality needs to end. We can't have it both ways. You can't go around saying everyone's equal, and then saying we're all special, we're all individuals, we're all different. Can't have it both ways. Sorry. You can have the laws where everyone's dealt with as a man or a woman, period, point blank. Get rid of the specifics. You know, there doesn't need to be special laws for a crippled black transgender midget than there are for an average white man. It just doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I'm going to go refill my juice while I let this 5-minute clip play for you guys. I hope you all enjoy, and then I'll be back and we'll get into the debate. So,
here's what we know so far about the background of the Orlando nightclub shooter. He was born in New York to Afghan immigrant parents. We are going to not say his name. We're not going to show his picture. We have no interest in idolizing or helping those who would idolize shooters of this sort.
Related to that, you know, it's not in this hour, but in the second hour of the show, we're going to talk about how police in Santa Monica, California, foiled a terror plot by a white individual who was planning on going to the Gay Pride Parade in West Hollywood with a small arsenal of his own. A mass shooting happened in Orlando that claimed the lives of 49 individuals, including the shooter himself. Fortunately, there was a similar plot in Los Angeles that was foiled by local police forces. Now, this shooter, or would-be shooter, is James Wesley Howell, and according to Santa Monica police officials, he...
Whoa. Slow down. Excuse me? What happened to your policy of we don't want to tell you his name or show you the guy's face because you don't want to idolize or help the person? I guess that's out the window. Wonder why. Oh, right, this guy's white. So there's his mugshot in all of its glory. I guess you have no problems showing his face and revealing his name because it serves your main agenda point, which is your ridiculous, bigoted backlash towards white people. They had the nerve to name their first video, Who Was the Nerve to name...
Now, everyone just look at this, because the next video is going to be this in action, the regressive agenda. White people are racist. Fuck white people. Fuck America. Blame America and its military for every problem on Earth. Mention Iraq. Defend the Muslims. Create a false equivalence between Christianity and muddy the waters. Fuck the cops. Fuck conservatives and Republicans.
Their first video, Who Was the Orlando Nightclub Shooter? ? And the thumbnail of that image is pixelated. They don't tell you who the shooter is. They don't show his face. They don't say his name. In the video for the Orlando shooter, their background graphic, which I always am delighted by the choices they make for these things, they called it, they've got a picture of the Pulse nightclub and they say tragedy in Orlando. Okay, this is a very neutral title to throw up there. Basically, a tragedy implies something bad happened. So our focus is on the net sorrow to come from this event. It's not to identify the singular human being that caused this tragedy. This was a malicious, evil act. So our focus could be on the families and the victims. That's very PC. That's very necessary. But we don't know those people. That's not our job. Our job is to be mad at the person who did this and then take steps to prevent it from happening again. So it's a tragedy in Orlando, okay? A tragedy, by the way, it's more apt to call a miscarriage a tragedy, a tornado, something like that. This is a murder. This is mass murder. Guess what? In London, where I am now, at the turn of the century, do you think they were reporting the Jack the Ripper murders as tragedy in East London? No, they were not. And by the way, Jack the Ripper, turns out he was a Polish immigrant. Hashtag build a wall. No, just kidding. I love the Polish. They're cool. No, not Jack the Ripper. Oh, no, not him. But guess what? Jack the Ripper was white. So his mugshot would be plastered up on the Young Turks. Do you want to see the background graphic they chose for the James Wesley Howell story? The non-story. The guy who had guns might have done something, didn't do something. Nobody was hurt, nobody was killed. So if you were going to take the same angle that you took for the Orlando case, which is to focus on the victims of the crime and say, ooh, it's a tragedy in Orlando, then this story should say, it was a Saturday. Saturday night, nothing happened. Everybody as you were. I mean, there is nothing, okay? Here is the graphic they chose to run. Okay? Soak that puppy up. Domestic terror. Written in a font where you have some grunge. They put a grunge layer on top of it. They set the layer style to multiply so that it looked like it was on top of the letters. It's dark. No, God, it's dirty. The letters themselves have texture and grunge and filth upon them. Because it's domestic terror. From who? From this guy. You want to see his face? Well, here it is right way up. Here it is on its side. Here it is upside down. He's a white guy. Celebrate that. What's his name? We told you his name. It's right here. Do we want to give him attention and help him? Well, you know, you take the pros with the cons. I mean, on one side, we would be sort of celebrating him and giving him attention. And we did just say 5 minutes ago that it is our policy to not do this. But, oh, fuck, he's white. Oh, it's such a prime opportunity. And look at this guy. Tell me this guy is not Frodo Baggins. I mean, did he get lost on his way to Mordor? Was he so sick of Samwise Gamgee, like riding his cock all the time? Or was he just a self-hating gay hobbit who was all boned up looking at that blonde elf dude that he thought, you know what, the way I can exercise my self-hatred is to go kill some gays? Is that what I'm to believe? You know, Young Turks, a word to the wise, if you're going to be this obvious, this transparent, this hypocritical, at least have the decency to separate the goddamn videos and the violation of your own policy by a day? How about a couple videos? When it's back to back, it's kind of hard to miss. You people suck. Balls.
So, we can see that there's obviously a bias and an agenda, so let's get into
How are we feeling
the
today?
debate.
Are you ready for a debate between Dinesh and Cenk? Say what's been said here just to bring everyone up to speed. So Dinesh earlier said, watch me set up a boot shop in Cenk Younger's rear and live this Sunday. And
First off, look at how smug Cenk looks. And this is because he knows he has appeal to mob mentality going on, because he has more fans in the audience. So he knows he can just say whatever. It doesn't have to make sense or have any facts behind it, and they'll just rally behind him. So he's basking in it. That's his basking in his mob phase.
in response, Cenk said, wrong, I'll be bringing the TYT army, and I know you've been in prison. but please stop obsessing about my ass.
And this is another thing that I personally consider a low blow. He will just continually bring up, but you were in prison. You were in prison. And mind you, on his show, though, the whole time he'll be like, the prison system disproportionately targets people of color. And then, meanwhile, if he can throw one of those people of color who has been disproportionately targeted, which Dinesh will make that point, he will just throw them under the bus. It doesn't matter, under the bus you go.
All right. Now that we've...
Because in the video he said that I was going to bring a knife to a gunfight. I brought you guys instead.
He's really going to need you.
All right.
It's nice to have fans.
And here's the other thing that these people have on their side. In their reality, if everything is a social construct and everyone agrees, because it's a social construct and the society agrees, therefore it must be right. So if I were to say our laws are a social construct, therefore I'm deciding it's okay to murder, if everyone agrees, well then we can all murder.
All right, well, let's kick things off here. You know, one of the interesting things about both of your backgrounds is that you're actually both immigrants to this country. Dinesh, you immigrated here from India.
We'll skip over this part.
That I would never be able to do if I stayed.
Dinesh just basically says America has more opportunity in it than he would have had in
anywhere.
India.
Rich people live very well in India. But what I was looking for is a country that offers that ladder of opportunity up which from a guy at the bottom could start the climb through industry and hard work, creativity. And I also was looking for a country where you could write the script of your own life. So today I'm doing things in media, in writing, speaking, making movies. There's no way I could do any of this in India. So to me, America is a country where you're in the driver's seat of your own future. And that, to me, is the reason why the American idea is so magnetic. We have an immigration problem because we pull people from all over the world. And I think that I'm representative of the aspirations of not only the hundreds of millions of people who've come over the centuries to America, from the Irish, the Italians, the Jews, but today, the Koreans, the West Indies, the Pakistanis, we come to this country for the same reason, and that is that America offers something unavailable in the rest of the world.
So, you're right. Our stories start out...
Now, and it's only because I watched this whole thing through, but you'll notice Cenk doesn't answer the question. He just immediately starts to attack.
Very similar. I came to the country when I was 8. The reason I was able to do that is that my dad was a small olive farmer in southeastern Turkey, and he got a chance to get a free education. And it made all the difference. And so I was also a Republican when I was younger, and then I realized how the world actually works. And so what I want, where we began to diverge is, I saw that equality of opportunity that my dad had, and I loved it, and I saw that in America, and that's why we chose to be American. So me being an American is not an accident of birth. It's not, hey, I happen to be born in a particular state. No, we were born outside the country. I came here. I love this country. I want to defend the ideas and the ideals that it stands for. But for me, unlike the conservatives, it's not, hey, everything we've done is fantastic, including the wars and the colonialism and the slavery.
Stuff that no one says. You know, he's again attacking this caricature. You know, Ben Shapiro said a really great thing when he said Stephen Colbert is political blackface, where, you know, basically the conservative that people like Cenk is attacking is Stephen Colbert's fake portrayal of a conservative. It's not anyone that exists. You know, they just have this imaginary straw man that they continually roll out like a piñata and take whacks at.
and the what we did to the Native Americans and all these things are wonderful because we did it. We're Americans.
And here's the whole thing. Here's the whole thing. If there was really a person like this, Stephen Colbert doing a caricature and a portrayal of it would not be funny. And the reason why it is funny is because no one is really like that conservative that he portrays.
Is, hey, equality of opportunity, liberty, the American dream. This is what we love America for. Let's live up to those ideals. And so, I was a Republican, and then partly because I'm an economic conservative and I believe in balancing budgets, but then in my entire lifetime, the Republicans never balanced the budget. Never. And so I was a Republican when I think, I'm not a guy who's blanket anti-war. I was for the Persian Gulf War. And then we decided to invade Iraq that had nothing to do with 9/11. Well, I'm not for really, really stupid.
How many of the points on the regressive agenda has he hit already? Mention Iraq, fuck America. I mean, he's just going down that list already.
Wars. And so, and then the Republican Party started doing torture. So I couldn't believe.
Also, if you see Ben Shapiro's things for debating a leftist, he does all of these too, just randomly. But Bush! I mean, the whole list is present.
That this party that I thought was for American ideals and why we came to the country had abandoned all of that.
Also, you notice how he'll be the first one to be like, you're saying not all Muslims, not all Mexicans. You don't mean all Mexicans. I mean, he does this in this debate, but, there's never any, well, not all conservatives.
So it turns out for the Republicans it was a marketing slogan. And I came to find out for liberals and progressives, they actually mean it. And they want America to live up to that ideal. So that's what I love, and I want everybody to have that same equality of opportunity.
Yes, except the difference between Republicans and conservatives and Democrats is the means in which they are trying to accomplish this change. I tell people we both want the same idea, we're just doing two opposite directions to get there. Except one historically achieves it, the other historically does the complete opposite. And it is the leftists that go with what historically just equals equality of poverty.
So let's talk, both of you mentioned equality of opportunity. Let's talk about that topic in the context of the 2016 election and the major candidates. Who do you think is going to most effectively bring equal opportunity to the country between the major candidates?
Well, I think it's a little difficult to answer your question for this reason. With Trump and Hillary, you have an unknown against a known. My fear of Trump is I don't know what he's going to do. My fear of Hillary is I do. So we've got a wild card against somebody who's been in public life all her life and who's basically been, I would say, on the take from day one. These are people who rent out the Lincoln bedroom. They pardon major-level racketeers, drug smugglers, and crooks for money. We've had corruption in local politics. Tammany Hall, the Daily Racket in Chicago. Never before have we had a Secretary of State who figure out, she uses the phrase commercial diplomacy, and she sure has made it work commercially for her. They've got a system in which the Clintons work as a tag team, one of them collecting the down payment through a speech, and then millions and tens of millions of dollars flowing in return for favors being granted on the global scale, collecting money from foreign governments. So we have an unknown quantity against a known crook. And Hillary's talk about equality of opportunity appears to be for her. So there's no real equality of opportunity. Bernie, in my opinion, is naive, but he's at least honest. And so I think some of the appeal of Bernie is that at least here's a guy, he might have been sleeping on his neighbor's couch until last week, but nevertheless, he's not a crook. At least I'm not a crook.
So my sense is, Cenk, you don't disagree with all of that, and you endorsed Bernie in the primary, and you've also been very critical of Hillary. So I'll pose the same question to you, but it's interesting. There is some agreement here on this topic.
There is some agreement, but there's also disagreement. So let me go one by one. We certainly agree that Bernie Sanders is totally honest, and that's why everybody I stopped myself because I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people obviously recognize that and were behind him, and he's not.
Yeah, he honestly believes that he is the divine one that will make socialism work.
Part of the same corrupt system. Hillary and Donald Trump are part of the corrupt system in as counterparts. It's actually a perfect symmetry. Donald Trump brags about how he used to corrupt people, how he would give them, in essence, legalized bribes, and then the Republicans look at that and go, "That's awesome." No, that's not awesome.
But can I stop you here and challenge you? I mean, there's a complete difference between a guy who has never run for public office, who is functioning as a businessman within the crony capitalist system of New York, and somebody who's running that system.
Yeah, and Dinesh makes this point and Cenk refuses to admit it. And I even have had personal friends of mine who used to think Bernie was great, and now they're calling me up saying, you know, I've been watching Trump tear apart Hillary, actually listening to what he was being said, and I see what you've seen all along, Jamie. And these are people who were conservatives and just thought that Bernie had the right ideas, but now they're actually looking at it and seeing, and they say, we know how Trump made his money. How is Hillary a multi-millionaire? I mean, she has so much money, and what does it come from? And that's what bothers me when people are like, but Trump's rich. Okay, and your point? Like, to some people, if you have money, you're evil. If you inherited money, you're evil. Look, because you had evil parents that did the best they could for you, and that's a problem with equality.
So in other words, you can't compare Trump and Hillary. Trump is essentially buying favors. Hillary's selling them. Which is worse?
Yeah, and this is the other thing. Let's change it to a different scenario. Who's the problem? The drug addict who wants to buy drugs, who needs them to get right, or the person selling the drugs who has set up a scenario where people can become addicted? Who's at fault? Most people would say the dealer, but in Cenk's world, it's not. It's the person selling. It's the person, it's the addict, basically. It's victim shaming or blaming or whatever.
So let me take some time to address all of that, to your question and your point. So I'll start with what you said, Dinesh. So first of all, I have a definitive answer on what's worse. What's worse is the people who set up the corrupt system in the first place. So oftentimes conservatives complain about, big government and they're so crony capitalists. No. The guys who fix the system were the ones.
Yeah, and this is where he's going to try to say that business people make laws.
Who wanted to purchase the politicians in the first place. So it's not like, oh, golly gee, you made me purchase a politician and I made 24,000% rate of return. Oops.
So if someone gives you a bag of stolen money, you're not at fault for taking the money because you need money. You're complicit in the crime is whatever, because again, you're a mindless drone being led around by society or whoever has power and privilege or whatever.
They're the ones who corrupted the system in the first place. So it's not like, oh, you twist my arm. Okay, I'll give you 100 and I'll get 1,000 back.
Wait.
That was the whole system, Dinesh.
Well,
that's why they did it. They put the money in politics not because it's an accident. It was by design. So yes, Donald Trump is worse because he is the corrupter.
Really?
This is
in India.
This is him basically saying the victim, the person who's having to do corrupt activities in order to get their fix, basically, is at fault.
Ahead to get a license, to get a passport, to get a ration card, you have to pay bribes. That's the system, right? Now, arguably, the fact that the government pays very little money and the citizens feel that this is the only way to get a ration card, they pay the bribe. So in that sense, they set up the system. But who do we hold accountable? The ordinary guy who can't get sugar from the store, or the guys in government who have been elected and entrusted by the people to look out for their interests? We elected Hillary, not Trump.
No. So let me just say for the record, anybody who watches the Young Turks knows we're no fans of Hillary Clinton or the system. We can't stand it, and we're not in favor of the establishment. We're not in favor of the corrupt system as we.
But what they hate more is people with money. And this is the whole social justice thing. It's class warfare disguised as racial, sexist, whatever. It's class warfare. If you've ever seen Gavin McKine's video on Canadians talking about Trump, he illustrates it beautifully in that video.
Have it now, and I know that a lot of parts of the establishment wants to protect itself. I understand that. But Dinesh, you have to go to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is, and I can trace it exactly to you. In 1971, there was a person who wrote for the Chamber of Commerce. His name was Lewis Powell. He wrote a letter saying, hey, you know what? The Chamber of Commerce can go buy different things. We're not buying enough things. We can go buy education. Let's go and chair different professors at different universities so that we can strike back against liberals. And one of his brilliant ideas was, let's go buy the Supreme Court. Let's give money to politicians so that they will allow us to influence the Supreme Court. You know what Richard Nixon did? It's like, that's a brilliant memo, young kid. Lewis Powell, you're now on the Supreme Court. And then Lewis Powell was the deciding vote in two Supreme Court decisions in 1976 and 1978 that said, yes, corporations are human beings. Yes, they have speech rights. Yes, they can spend money to bribe our politicians, which is mental. There's not a, raise your hand.
And here's where Dinesh will give Cenk a little lesson in law and legalities. Like I mentioned in a previous video, you have legal fictions that are set up in your name before you're allowed to walk or anything. Technically, your name in all caps on your driver's license is a corporation. It is a corporate entity. You can only fee, fine, tax, and imprison corporations. You cannot do that to humans of flesh and blood. So, Cenk has a very limited grasp on how the world actually works.
Raise your hand if you think a corporation is a human being. Okay, I got 3 hands here. They must be with you, Dinesh. Okay.
Well,
so that is how they bought the system, lock, stock, and barrel. And then you turn around to politicians who are in this systemic corruption, and you go, it's your fault. And then you go, the business guy's buying them. Don't look at them. Don't look at them. They're the problem. They're both the problem, and you're only looking at one side of it.
all right. Number one, I recognize that in a certain Pavlovian sense, to invoke the corporation is not a human being is to bring a certain kind of automatic applause. I recognize that. But
That's because it's true.
no, it's not true. As anyone who goes to law school knows.
And this is, I love that he referenced the Pavlovian thing because, you know, it's also the leftists who say, dog whistle racism, dog whistle this. And that was him just being like, dog whistle to all of his idiots, applaud, even though Dinesh is going to break down the reality for him.
To say a corporation is a human being is not to say that a corporation has lungs and can breathe and can be murdered in the same sense a human being can, but a corporation is a human being in certain defined legal respects. So, human beings can make a contract in which I hire you, you agree to come work for me. Are you telling me corporations should not be able to make such contracts?
I can tell you exactly what I'm saying. So let me explain. So corporations have 2 different kinds of rights. In the old days, they only had legal rights because they're a legal fiction. We created them. We are their creators. So, and that is how corporations came to be. By the way, the Young Turks is an LLC. It's a corporation. So there's nothing wrong with that. I want corporations to exist. But what the Supreme Court did was it gave them constitutional rights, rights that they have that are inalienable, endowed by their creator. We're their creator. They don't have any inalienable rights. They have no constitutional rights.
All right. So let's look at some constitutional rights.
And here's where Cenk makes himself look like a moron of a journalist.
Have an LLC, so do I. My film company, LLC. Does a corporation, which is to say, remember, a corporation in this case is the 8 guys that make up our corporation, do we have a right of assembly?
Of course, we have a right of assembly.
Do we have a right of
and
speech?
Within
Am I allowed to make a
No.
movie?
No.
No, okay,
You
so-
have a right to freedom of speech.
All right,
Okay,
so-
but a robot that we created that is to maximize profit does not have constitutional rights.
So notice how it pivots from corporation to robot. And actually, the EU has just set up a thing where now robots do have human rights. They're capable of copywriting intellectual property, making profits, everything like that. I'll probably do a whole separate video on that. Robots are getting human rights, but they were talking about corporations. Cenk just pulls in robots out of nowhere.
Okay. All right. So, this is actually a good test. I'm releasing a movie next month. It's called Hillary's America. Although I'm making the movie, I'm the narrator. It's actually produced by our LLC. What if you and your Young Turks goons show up at the theater and block people from getting in? Is that allowed? Because the corporation has no rights.
No, Dinesh, that's not how it works.
Does a corporation
No,
have free speech rights or not?
Dinesh, they have legal rights. It's not that they have no rights. And if you have legal rights, people can't show up and to block entrance for other Americans, actual human beings, to attend a movie they'd like to attend.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, see, Cenk's trying to play a semantical game where he's saying they have legal rights. Yes, some of those legal rights are the same constitutional rights. Constitutional rights are legal rights that apply to humans.
Okay. So the idea of disrupting the movie is only prohibited because he wants to come watch it and he has rights. The actual right to show the movie does not exist, in your opinion.
So he has rights, and he has a right not to be blocked, not to be assaulted. So that's obvious.
And that is the only reason why you wouldn't do it.
No, there's many. I don't. First of all, nobody goes to your movies anyway. So
Oh, really?
why would you?
Oh, yeah.
Who would
You don't get arrested over movies nobody's seeing, Cenk.
bother to block it?
Oh, really? Cenk,
Like,
Cenk.
who's going to take out a
Cenk.
Saturday night to go to a movie
Okay.
to block?
How many
If it
people-
was a real movie, we might block.
how
it.
many people watch a typical show of the Young Turks?
I'm glad you asked.
Okay. Okay.
And this is the part that scares me, is that people do watch this nonsense. But we're going to fast forward this because they're just talking about who has bigger audiences and stuff like that. So
Came, in a sense, family. We became my surrogate family in the United States.
this is him explaining that he was arrested for campaign finance stuff. He also gets into the fact that no one else has ever been arrested for this, because this is where Cenk is taking all of his low blows.
Okay. All right, as you might suspect, I love this topic. So I'm not covering for Hillary Clinton at all. I just spent, a year telling you everything that's wrong with Hillary Clinton. And I get to do that because I didn't spend time in jail for corruption. But
Well,
you...
I didn't spend time in jail for
no,
corruption
but
either.
you did.
No, I didn't.
You did.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No. There is actually a charge called corruption. I wasn't even charged with corruption.
What were you charged with?
I was merely charged with exceeding the campaign finance law.
Yes, breaking
Now,
the
let
campaign
me ask you
finance
this.
laws.
Let me
By
ask
the
you
way, which takes a special kind of genius in an era where we've legalized bribery to go to jail for not being able to figure that out.
Now,
That's right. And
like I said, Cenk, the person who's minorities are disproportionately targeted by the legal system, is now mocking someone who was targeted by the legal system for something no one else has ever had happen. He admits that this is normally allowed wrongfully, but yet they went after Dinesh, but he's still just using it to throw Dinesh under the bus and try to say, corruption, and Dinesh is like, it wasn't for corruption. And Cenk just doesn't, he can't take in any of the facts. He can't concede anything. In fact, he'll make a point later on where Cenk gets so overwhelmed with not conceding to the point that he just starts going off on a tangent about slavery.
And what does that tell you? The fact
You didn't
that
do
I
it very well. That's what it
Right.
tells
The
me.
fact that I do something unbelievably stupid, right?
Agreed.
And the fact that the Obama administration puts dozens of FBI agents on me, goes through my tax returns, reads all my books, this suggests that this is not a simple matter of this guy did something super dumb. People who do super dumb things without trying to be corrupt don't go into the lockup. You know this.
So
let me
Dinesh,
ask you
you
this.
have all these conspiracy theories, but you know who else has a dozen FBI agents pursuing her? Hillary Clinton. So it's not like the Obama team's like, no, not Hillary. They have a dozen FBI agents pursuing her as they pursued you. So where's the bias? There's no bias. That is their nominee.
All right.
You should give them credit. You say right here on the record, President Obama is incredibly fair.
Let me ask you this. Well, if my crimes were proportional...
Cenk just exposed that he has no idea how the FBI works or anything like that. Obama doesn't single-handedly run the FBI. It's compartmentalized, and he's trying to create a false equivalency between Dinesh exceeding a campaign finance law and Hillary Clinton and her laundry list of crimes.
Proportionate to Hillary, it would be fair.
Look. I don't like that she set up a private server in her house, and I'm worried about that. But you clearly broke the laws. You admit you broke the laws. That's why you went to jail. She never went to jail.
Let me ask you this.
You're the worst person in America to criticize her for being corrupt. I mean, you literally broke the laws regarding corruption.
Cenk?
Because you got, I mean, again, someone would say people are wrongly arrested, disproportionately targeted. Now in his head, if you get arrested and you get punished, you are worse than the person who's doing it and getting away with it. Can you see morality is obviously out the window with him?
All right.
And you made a whole movie about it. That's
All
what's amazing.
Can you name any person in American history who has given 20 grand over the campaign finance limit and served 1 day in the lockup?
But Dinesh,
Can you?
did it.
Can you?
Did it.
All right.
Did it. So I'm not an expert on the campaign finance crooks of American history.
All right.
I do know one, and he's on the stage with me.
Right. Okay. All right.
You know, thank God I will never be in a position to debate Cenk because I'd punch him in the face. If I was Dinesh at this point, and Dinesh is too nice and too civil and everything, I would have just punched him in the face. I would have been like, listen, we can debate, but if you're just going to bully me, I will knock you out. And that's what Cenk does for the majority of this. He bullies him, and he deserves to get rocked. That's all there is to it.
Right. There's a guy. Let me make you a little more expert on this. There's a guy named Chatwal, Asian Indian guy. We Asian Indians appear to specialize in the campaign finance violation area. In any event, this dude gave 180,000. We finished. 180,000 in straw donations to Hillary Clinton and a whole group of Democratic candidates. His case came up the same time as mine. No prison, no confinement. He got a fine. He got community service. Now, here's my point. You keep saying you did it. But anybody who champions justice knows that justice isn't just a matter of did you do it. It's a matter of does the penalty fit the crime? Do other guys who did the same thing get the same penalty? That's the America. You talk about equality. Let's have some equality of opportunity.
Let me just say one last thing about this. So Dinesh, that's exactly what we root for. So if you've got
or mock, depending on the day, I guess.
People who are corrupt, that's exactly what I fight against. So I don't just fight against you. I fight against Democrats. I fight against Republicans who are corrupt. If it was up to me, we would make that bribery illegal again. Not just his bribery, but the bribery where you do campaign donations, and I'd put them all in jail, okay? But when
I
you
didn't
talk
do
about
bribery, just to correct you.
Okay.
Except Bernie accepting briberies from unions, though. I assume that's okay.
Well,
You think I did?
yeah, when you go to pay someone money that they're not supposed to be paid against the law.
What is the definition of bribery?
Okay, so let me finish my point, Dinesh. Look, dude, you spent 8 months in jail. You're still arguing.
Notice how that's it. What's the definition of bribery? You went to jail! You went to jail! I'm right! You went to jail! Racism! Ah! I mean, he's a child. Oh, he's the biggest child I've ever seen.
Before Dinesh went into prison, he said that Mexican immigrants.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard
This is Cenk's other thing. Cenk, and if you saw him debate Ann Coulter would say something, and then Cenk would say, what she's really saying is, and then he'd give his sort of fast and loose interpretation of it. And this is his other thing. Like, Cenk came prepared for this, because he keeps trying to pull these gotchas on Dinesh, where he's like, Weren't you the one that said that all Mexicans are super rapists? Aren't you? Didn't you say this, that black people should be happy about slavery? Didn't you say this? And Dinesh just obviously doesn't have the time to pay attention to how stupid Cenk is, because why would you? You don't need to analyze someone who's a moron to know they're a moron.
Bribe with nothing in return? Ever heard
So
of
you
such a bribe?
claim there's nothing in return.
The-
You
the-
claim there's nothing
I don't
in return,
claim that.
But
The
a
government
court
claimed
decided
that.
that you were guilty and put you in
No,
prison for 8 months.
the government didn't accuse me of any
So to
bribery.
finish my point, before Dinesh went into prison,
This is, see, and Cenk is desperately trying to character attack Dinesh and trying to make him appear like he is a corrupt, evil person. All he did was try to give a campaign contribution to a friend, and it exceeded a arbitrary law of amounts that everyone else is allowed to break without punishment, and Dinesh has tried to explain that to him. And Cenk's just whole thing is, but you were locked up! You were locked up! You were locked up! I mean, could you imagine if he tried, if the idea of him doing that on the show to say black people? Oh, well, you know, there's this black guy, he was wrongfully accused of, you know, having an illegal firearm. But he was locked up! But he was locked up! I mean, you know that would never happen.
he said that Mexican immigrants, unlike immigrants who travel for a far distance like he did or I did, were, quote, parasitic. But since then, he has done community service as part of his sentence. And come to find out, oh my God, not all Mexican immigrants are parasitic. So Dinesh, I want to give you credit for that. You've got a nice open mind about us. Tell us about that experience where you began to see that maybe not everyone from a certain race might be parasitic.
Well,
not all.
As you might imagine, this is the Cenk version of what I said, and you can rely on it being a fast and loose summary of the facts. The truth of it is,
look it up.
Historically, immigrants came to this country when there was no safety net, when there were no benefits to be had. They came out of necessity, they couldn't go back, and they had to make it. In other words, there were ladders of opportunity, but there was no a rope that they could hang on to and have other people pull them up. What makes our situation different today is that we now have a massive welfare state. By the way, a welfare state set up by Americans for Americans. A social contract is among the citizens who are already here. There is no automatic right of someone who is not a citizen to claim benefits that Americans have collectively pooled for themselves. So, my point is America should have a generous immigration policy that attracts immigrants of the first stripe. If an immigrant is coming here to sit in a hammock and get free education, free healthcare, free this, free that, then stay home.
So just to close the point here, so
First stripe? Am I first stripe? I feel good about that, I guess.
So Cenk, as we think about this general election, are you going to be endorsing any of the candidates, or are you going to write in someone, or what's the plan?
No, I never even technically endorsed Bernie Sanders. Everybody knows that I support Bernie Sanders because I support his policies. We're very honest about that.
What's the difference between supporting and endorsing?
But my job is to analyze the news. So when Bernie Sanders I thought was wrong about gun policy, I talked about that. When I thought he was
Of slavery that purported to show that slavery was good not just for the master but also for the slave. At the end of slavery, the Democratic Party invented segregation.
This is Dinesh going through the history of the Democratic Party, which will be in his new movie.
And talk about the Civil
So
Rights
you
Act.
liked them when they were progressive?
No.
And here they're debating who's using the term progressive and when, and, you know, racist history of Democrat versus Republican.
More time. So Republicans were more progressive. They were the progressive party.
Progressing to where?
No,
And
that's
their
not the
current
reason.
day racist.
Racist.
So happy about being liberated, they should give white people.
Oh,
Past.
yeah.
Now, you don't find that in your textbooks. You don't find your professors telling you this. You won't hear about this on the Young Turks. Why? Because they're now doing cover up for the progressives.
It is purposely misleading. That's why you
Purposely
don't say it, because it's purposely misleading. Is the grass green? Oh, sometimes it's yellow. Gotcha. All right, so do you think that black people should give white people reparations?
No.
Okay, how about that? What you wrote in your book about, hey,
didn't-
they should be so happy about being liberated, they should give white people money.
That's
You
not
wrote
what
that.
I said. That's not what I said. Let me tell you what I did say. And this is why, actually, we're having a debate with politics and entertainment, but we can't get to these issues if we don't frame the other person's argument fairly. In my movies, in the America film, I brought on leading leftists, Michael Eric Dyson and others, and I let them make their case. And later, after the movie, I saw him. I go, Michael, did I portray you fairly in the movie? And he goes, you're not Michael Moore. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So I'm trying to frame the argument of the left the way they would put it. But you're not doing that. You're basically picking a line here. You don't even have a quote. But you're just throwing it out there, relying on your guys to go wild. And that's not really a debate.
He's right. That's bullying.
Dinesh, if I did that behind your back, you might have a point. You're right here. You have a mic. I asked you a question. Answer it.
I'll answer it. So,
Okay.
so my argument was, and this is an argument that was basically made by not just by Booker T. Washington, many others. They basically argued
Frederick Douglass as well.
that slavery was a transmission belt. Slavery was evil, and it was terrible for the slaves. But they asked, what about the descendants of slaves who were subsequently born in America as opposed to being born, let's say, in Africa? Muhammad Ali, when he came back from the rumble in the jungle in Zaire, was asked by a reporter, hey, champ, what did you think of Africa? And he goes, thank God my granddaddy got on that boat. Now, this is Ali being very politically incorrect, but I think making a point that is worth considering. And that is to say that there is great value. We immigrants go through great difficulties to come into the orbit of Western freedom. So this is the complexity of the point I was making, that the slaves in America were worse off, but their descendants born in the orbit of American freedom in a land of opportunity are in fact better off.
So there's another.
Now, you see Cenk, he's about to go wild. And this is, again, where this gets bothersome, because you're basically taking opinions held by Booker T. Washington, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and all of the actual civil rights leaders, and you're just disregarding them, and basically they don't know what's good for themselves.
Point I want to get to here, which is, Dinesh, you have a movie that you put out, I think, in 20...
I'm glad you put that in context, by the way.
See, he can't help himself.
I'm sure the slaves were so thankful. You made a cogent point there.
I said that
Congratulations, you've been put in the orbit of freedom.
See, even the people in the audience that are mainly Cenk's fans are like looking at him like, what are you about to do? Are you really going to just try to... You can't just concede this one point. There's a rational thought there held by most of the civil rights leaders, and you're just going to say, oh, well, they don't know any better?
Ironically, through slavery. Hundreds of years of slavery. That is a curious orbit of freedom.
Cenk.
Don't worry, though. Your great-grandkids one day might be free after I whip you, I own you, I kill you, I separate your family, I rape your wife. After all that, your great-grandkids might be in the orbit of freedom. Why, thank you so much.
So I just finished saying that slavery was a terrible moral crime, and we have to distinguish the slaves from
Is
their
that what he said?
descendants. That's what I did say. You weren't listening because you've trained your ear to jump before you think.
Hey, you guys want to do a poll of African Americans in this country and ask them if they should thank white people for slavery? How do you think that poll comes out, Dinesh?
I don't think anyone has ever said that.
Okay, but no, today they are the descendants who have been brought into the orbit of freedom. So according to your logic, they should be incredibly thankful.
Does everyone else see Cenk's comprehension problem? I mean, this is the problem with having an ideological lens stuck to your face to the point where you can't see anything except if it agrees 1,000% with what you're saying. Like, he could have just said, all right, I see where you're coming from. but he just slavery and whips and owning them and racism and let's poll black people and ask if they should thank white people. I mean, things that were never said, blatantly never said. Dinesh makes a logical point made by civil rights leaders, and Cenk thinks that they're all just stupid.
Let's do a poll. Let's find out.
Hold on a
Do
second.
you really believe these things, Dinesh?
Or
are you trying to get...
Let's misrepresent what you said to the point where everyone agrees with me that you're wrong.
...by right-wing guys who are paying you to say this nonsense.
Paying him to like, this is his other accusation, that Dinesh, that everyone on the right isn't saying what they're saying because they believe it, but someone's funneling money into them, and they're just saying it because of money, and and then he'll go, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, me assuming everyone's paying everyone to say stuff they don't believe, that's not a conspiracy, that's reality.
Cenk, there are penniless Irish driven out by the potato famine who came starving to America. Their lives were actually, in many senses, worse. But their descendants, born here now in America, obviously enjoy freedoms that their ancestors didn't have. So I don't understand why you are... I don't know if you...
Dinesh doesn't understand why he has to break this down for Cenk as if he is mentally retarded.
Or being vile or being stupid, but it looks to me like it's some bizarre combination of the two. You refuse to try to understand what I'm saying.
No, I think I got it.
You got it.
Yes.
I think you got it. At least to the degree you can.
Let me ask you about another book you wrote where you said that 9/11 was because of Planned Parenthood, Nancy Pelosi, and Brokeback Mountain.
Really? That's what I said.
Yes,
Maybe
and that
you
it
can
was...
clarify.
Go ahead, clarify. That's what you have a mic for.
Sure.
Go for it, big guy.
Yeah.
How about it, Hoss?
So in my book, The Enemy at Home...
You know, instead of debating, it's so funny because Cenk keeps trying these gotchas, and it just backfires on him every time, where he's like, didn't you say this? And then Dinesh explains it, and it's like, oh, logical point. And you could tell in the audience at first, the majority of people there were on the side of the Young Turks. But the applauses for what Dinesh is saying show that there's a large amount of Cenk's viewers that actually do grasp what Dinesh is saying. And it makes complete logical sense, but because it doesn't fit with Cenk's narratives and ideologies, he takes issue with it.
In my book, The Enemy at Home, I read...
And in a previous video I did in the same group that I'll be uploading today, I mentioned the idea of, liberalism and Islam joining forces. It's so amazing because the things that Islam has a problem with in Western society are all the things that the leftists champion, like homosexuality.
It's the question of, when you look at the propaganda of the radical Muslims, what are the themes that they emphasize to recruit on the Arab street? And I said, you see foreign policy in there, you see Palestine, you see Saudi Arabia, but many of these guys aren't in Palestine or Saudi Arabia. They're in Pakistan, they're in Egypt. So what attracts them to the radical Muslim cause? I said, this whole notion of America as the great Satan is an attempt to capitalize on the values of Hollywood that are projected abroad. Now, here we have to realize we're not just talking about radical Muslims.
The values of Hollywood are liberal values: anti-gun, anti-family, pro-gay, strong female, whatever,
Throughout Asia today, there is a slogan that's gathering currency. It's called modernization, yes, westernization, no. And this is traditional people all over the world who want Western technology, and they want constitutional rights, and they want democracy, but they don't like what they see as some of the more shameless aspects of Western culture shoved down their throats. This is a real issue worldwide. Look at the recent case in Orlando. If anyone thinks that there's no merit to this, just read the book. He doesn't read books. What he does... He makes these one-sentence summaries.
I don't read his books. There's a big difference.
That's right. You don't read them, but you talk about them. You don't read them, but you talk about them because someone gave you the one-sentence summary.
All right. Have you watched every one of my shows?
No.
How dare you? Don't talk about anything I say.
All right, let's move on
I haven't talked
to...
about your shows.
All right, by the way, you just said,
Notice that He's not. He's not saying, well, wasn't there an episode where you once said... No, he's trying to actually debate him, and Cenk is just trying to bully.
Liberals caused 9/11. That's your argument, right?
I said that not the real not actual American culture, but the projection of American culture abroad is giving aid and comfort to the radical Muslims who are using it as an effective recruiting tool. I did say that.
So when you mentioned Brokeback Mountain, that was just a coincidence that movie happened to be about homosexuality?
No, I'm actually saying that the trumpeting of values like homosexuality, feminism, in third world cultures becomes a way of people saying, we don't want that. We don't want that over here. You join me to fight against the great Satan.
So Pat Robertson says homosexuals caused 9/11, and you say the spreading of homosexual culture caused 9/11. That is very sophisticated. I missed that nuance. By the way, the oldest trick in the book for people who write obnoxious, horrible books is if a decent person doesn't read them, well, you didn't read them, okay? It's the oldest trick in the book. Yeah, I saw the trailers for your movies.
This is, again, Cenk just trying his bullying and character attack being, oh, of course I don't pay attention to what you do because it's below me. I'm sophisticated. I disavow you, Dinesh. I disavow everything you've said because it's all this warped mischaracterizations that I've decided you've said. It's not what you actually said. It's what I say you said, Dinesh. Oh, I disavow you.
Preposterous. I saw I read the introductions and the summaries of your books that are, what an enormous waste of time, because the whole thing is to mislead everybody. That is the whole point of the book. So, for example, you talk about Obama's rage. So if you don't know, that's a classic racist trope, the angry black man.
Oh, here's the other thing, yes. But in case you didn't know, black people are now incapable of being angry, because there was once a stereotype that black people are angry, as if people don't get angry, as if not all humans have emotions, and anger being one of them. So, because Dinesh said one time that Obama has rage, it means Dinesh is a racist, and he's dog whistling the racism.
He wrote a book about it. And one of his supporters yells out, "It's true," right? And so, again, Dinesh, do you know that that's a racist trope, or is that like a newsflash to you that throughout history in America that they have used the idea of the angry black man to keep blacks down, and you just happen to be talking about Obama's rage from the guy who's like you could say a lot of bad things about Obama, and I have, but rage? Really?
Let me
the
just give a
only
little
way you
more
would say
context
that is if you wanted to say angry black man. Hey, whites, will you buy my book? Will you buy my book, White Racist?
So let me add some context to. So you released a movie in 2012 about Obama's America, and you made some prognostications about 2016. So I think this is interesting. We're in 2016. Maybe you could do a self-inventory of which predictions came true, and be honest. I mean, no one can predict the future, so it's totally fine if you didn't get everything right, and then we'll have you respond.
Yeah. So the trope of black rage is something that is within American culture. The idea it came out of the Malcolm X talk, for example, about the good Negro and the bad Negro. There's a whole history here. I've written a 2,000-page book about this. My argument about Obama is different.
Even they didn't clap.
My argument about Obama is a little different. My argument was that if you actually read Obama's book, he is less a figure of the civil rights movement of America than of the great anti-colonialist struggle of the third world. Now, there's recent literature on Obama by people in the Obama White House that confirm this notion that Obama almost learned from a young age, not just from Hawaii, but Indonesia, his trips to Kenya, to look at America from the outside in. I think in this way he's even different than Hillary. Now, you can judge Obama for yourself and see if this is a correct angle. I might be wrong about it, but when you have a guy who's the President of the United States, you can't immunize criticism of him. It's not the same thing as me talking about a bunch of kids in the inner city. I'm talking about the President, and if you say, you can't say he's angry because you're appealing to the ancient trope of black rage, we would not be able to have free criticism of our leaders because they would just constantly be blocking it on this and blocking it on that. So I challenge you to cite a single line or paragraph I have ever written about Obama that is racist in any way. No one has even alleged that. And so what we're getting here, well, he's alleging
Yeah,
it.
except
And I think
except Cenk, because when in doubt, racist.
The book is Obama's Rage.
And that's all you need for Cenk is a black person and rage anywhere near each other, and you must be a racist. It's that to admit that black people have emotions is racist, because black people are you know, they're not superior. They don't have power and privilege. So, and this is the other mind-boggling thing of all of this social justice nonsense, is that it's people who continually try to tell themselves and everyone else that, I mean, they are establishing a white supremacy, and they think they're fighting it, but they are establishing it through their actions. Because now you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't say that. We all have to admit that white people are superior. I mean, you see it, even there was a BuzzFeed thing that came up recently, maybe I'll do a video on it, where it's like 22 questions or whatever white people have for white people, and it's just them being like, you know, we have privilege, right? You know we're in power. You know we're running this, right? 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 I mean, it's so obnoxious, and it's like, no, people don't live like that. People don't accept this as reality. You are the one that, for some reason, wants this supremacy. You have to convince everyone else that we are superior. What did white supremacists actually do? Oh, they went around convincing each other that everyone else is inferior and they're not in control of their own lives, and they just get ran by white people, and that's what these people are trying to convince everyone of. Oh, we're running everything. We have the power. We have I mean, they're building a white supremacy while claiming they're fighting it.
Okay.
Useful idiots.
Yes, that's my quote. Yes, you do.
I think that settles his case.
It's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence that I happen to pick a theme that is the identical of a racist trope for hundreds of years in America. Golly gee, did I do that? And did my white racist donors, were they super happy about it?
Donating to what? I mean, again, he's just making shit up left and right. Dinesh isn't running for office. What donors? Who do you think is paying him to do what? These are Cenk's conspiracy theories.
What a wild coincidence!
So wait, you didn't answer the question about the predictions.
So in the movie, the beauty of a movie is that you can watch it now. It came out in 2012, and you can check. I made specific predictions in the movie. I said that Obama will double the national debt. I said that he will undermine our allies and strengthen our enemies.
Sorry.
I said that he would slash the defense budget, slash our nuclear arsenal, and allow other countries hostile to us to develop nuclear weapons. Now, I'm not gloating here, because I'm actually very unhappy that these things have come true. I see American allies one by one drop in the Middle East. Mubarak was our ally. Obama pulled the rug out from under him. Gaddafi was not our ally, but he was behaving himself in the wake of the Iraq War. He was giving us intelligence on terrorism. This is Hillary's line on Gaddafi. We went there, we saw, he died. In other words, we knock out a guy who's working with us. Meanwhile, Assad in Syria is still in power. The mullahs in Iran are even stronger. So it is a matter of clinical classification to see if these predictions are true or false. You can make up your own mind, but if you get a summary from this guy, you can be pretty sure that it's a cartoon version of what I did.
So, we have yet another case of a classic Dinesh D'Souza attempt to mislead you. So he'll say things like, oh, well, the debt has increased. Okay, that's true. Okay, and he goes, yeah, I win. Okay, no, let's look at context. George Bush, $5 trillion surplus by then handed off a $1.5 trillion deficit, which Obama, throughout the years, cut in half. But they don't tell you that. They don't say, hey, God sucks at balancing the budget.
Hold on.
He put that in Obama's lap, and then, oh my God, Obama, look at his deficits. Given to you by George W. Bush.
No. I notice... I notice a very cunning slide from the concept of the debt, which is an aggregate of our
No, and notice, let's just notice the characters here, because, you have Cenk, who's taking every opportunity he can to shit talk Republicans, or this is classic Dinesh D'Souza misleading, and then Dinesh very politely goes, I noticed this sleight of hand from the debt to the deficit. He doesn't go, this is classic leftist misleading, Cenk misleading, even though Dinesh is politely explaining, Cenk, you're misleading people, you're misrepresenting people, but Cenk is the bully in this scenario. Dinesh is just trying to debate.
Our obligations to the deficit, which is an annual total. Very
the
cunning,
deficit
but
leads to the debt.
yes, it does. So let me ask you
And
this.
you guys created that deficit,
Really?
which led to that debt.
All right, what were the average deficits in the 8 Bush years?
Okay, so this is another classic trick that
What
people
were
do.
they?
Okay.
Do you know?
Oh, asking me for the specifics on what I'm saying. This is a classic thing. They try to make you know facts. Ah.
So this is yeah, I do. Hold on.
All right,
So
tell us.
So I just told you the exact number that George Bush handed off to Barack Obama. But what they'll do is and I used to do this in college. You'll study specific facts and then put them in there and they go, wow, look at that. So he memorized the 8 years. And then he'll go and turn around to seem smart. Do you know the exact number for those 8 years of the deficit? I just told you exactly where he started and where he ended up.
No.
The fact that you know, but in 2007 it wasn't as large as it is in 2008 is irrelevant. It is done as a debating tactic.
Okay.
The point is he was given a $5 trillion surplus
Facts are debating tactics now.
and he exited with a $1.5 trillion deficit. That is because he sucks at balancing the budget, and then you want to blame Obama for it. That is your attempt to mislead.
All right. Let me give you a couple of concrete facts. We're in a public domain, so they can easily be checked. And then if you can disagree with me, do so. The average, hold on. The average Bush deficits. See, this is what happens. This is what happens when facts come into the picture. Hold on. The national debt was approximately $8.5 trillion when Obama took office in early 2009. Look it up. It was about $8.5 trillion. It is now well over $17 trillion. Obama has doubled the national debt. Now,
I keep explaining to him.
true or false?
So, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So he goes, I have a fact, and I'm going to state that fact, but I'm not going to give you any context. And most of my readers are Republicans, so they're kind of stupid, and they'll buy into it. So I'll just give it.
People who listen to facts are stupid, and they should just believe me in what I'm saying, because I'm not saying any facts. I'm just saying everyone is a Republican. Yes, all Republicans are stupid.
No context. And then, as I've now done.
When I'm Supreme Commander and Dictator, Cenk Uygur will be brought up on crimes against humanity, and he will be exiled back to Turkey or wherever he is from. Just so everyone knows, another reason to vote for me.
3 times I give him the context as to why that happened, and he goes, "Oh, context."
No, what he doesn't want to say is 8 to 17. So we'll subtract the 8 from that amount and say that we just couldn't do anything towards it. Well, that's still now $9 trillion. So you can't blame Bush if you've already subtracted the 8. So why is there now $9 trillion? That's Obama's amount. That's higher than Bush's amount. This is basic. This is so simple. And this is why Cenk has to go on these tangents and say, oh, well, Republicans are stupid, and he's just debating tactics from college. And he's like a cartoon character you just want to strangle.
So damaging, so troubling. Republicans, remember, he doubled the debt. Where did it come from? Dinesh, where does a debt come from? True or false, does it come from deficits?
Yes, it does. And Obama
And
has
did
had
they
trillion-dollar deficits one after the other.
Did George Bush, facts, let's talk facts. Did George Bush hand off a $1.5 trillion deficit to President Obama?
True.
Did he bring that down to under half of that deficit at this point?
On this annual basis, yes, but over 8
Yes.
years.
Yes. There we have it. Facts. Facts.
Cherry picking the facts.
Cenk, we had
But what about the debt?
no. Obama has added $8.5 trillion to the national debt in 8 years. His average deficit is $1 trillion. Now, you talked about Republican deficits that made you a liberal. In the Reagan years, people talked about $200 billion deficits as far as the eye can see. George W. Bush, never had a deficit exceeding $500 billion.
That's
so
because he was handed a $5 trillion surplus. Context, facts. You attempt to mislead, I clarify. We can do this all night long.
All right. Let me just.
Okay.
By the way, let's have fun. Who's the last Republican president to balance the budget when he left office? Because Republicans are good at that, right? Who's the last president?
Reagan.
Wrong. Eisenhower.
Wrong.
Look it up. Look it up. You think
No,
Reagan
no.
left office
Hold
with a
on.
balanced budget?
Hold on.
Is that what you're saying?
Hold on.
Okay,
No.
now context.
We're talking. No, I agree. Reagan had modest deficits, but under Reaganism, two things were happening. One was a massive peace dividend from the end of the Cold War. You talk about the Clinton surplus.
So you're giving excuses.
I'm talking about the Clinton surplus being the product of the technological revolution and the end of the Cold War.
So
What do you
let's
think
review
it
the
was?
facts. Let's review the facts. The only ones who have balanced the budget in our lifetimes are Democrats. The Republicans have a lot of excuses. Oh, golly gee, we had this and the thing. And by the way, you were wrong. See, I can do this too. I know a fact he doesn't know. It was Eisenhower. Okay, that's a cute little debating trick. Okay, who's the last Republican president to balance the budget in any given year rather than the end of their...
You notice how Cenk is just rambling. He's just rambling about nothing. He doesn't want to debate. He just wants to... Oh, this is just a tactic. He thinks he's fucking debating and, like, refereeing this at the same time.
Administration. Oh, you don't know it, I will.
This is bullying. This is what bullying looks like.
So much of the economy to control oil drilling and education and healthcare, and that's going to make it less possible for corrupt people who are in politics to be so corrupt, and it's going to reduce the incentive of people in the private sector who should be competing with each other to compete with politicians like Hillary to put money in their back pocket.
Okay, I love this. So let's break this down. So, first of all, Republicans have a talking point. We're against big government. Okay, great. You're against the giant military, the largest government program we have? No. I love that big government.
Again,
okay, great.
not
Against...
talking about what Dinesh was saying. He's not responding to Dinesh. He's just back into the rhetoric. Like he's doing what he's doing is dog whistle liberal rhetoric, where he'll vaguely get a point from Dinesh. He'll be like, "Oh, you're talking about spending, big government, military." Big government, Republicans say that not what Dinesh just said. I'm not dealing with that. I'm dealing with all Republicans and making fun of you.
Intruding on a woman's right to choose and getting between her and her doctor. No. I love that big government. No, I love that big government. I love a government so big it's in your ovum. Okay. So why do they do it? So here's the interesting part. Why do they do it? So it isn't because they're concerned about big government. It's because they want lower taxes and less regulation. So that way they can save money. They can save money if they have less safety features in their mine, but your family might die in a mine accident. But they saved a couple of bucks with a talking point about smaller government. And look, any tiniest little change.
Oh, like liberals don't take more of your money by promising compassion and caring and sharing and help.
Tax code gets the rich billions of dollars. Why do you think they do the crony capitalism in the first place? Why do you think they send Dinesh out with his talking points? So that he can convince people,
no one's sending me out.
Let's go smaller government.
I want to know who's sending Cenk out. Who pays for Cenk to do what he does? Because I guarantee you there's funding there. I can't imagine, because liberals aren't as giving, I can't imagine that he's listener supported.
By which I mean less taxes for me and less regulation so I can take more risks and do more pollution.
Notice the question was about controlling corruption in the political process, i.e. buying politicians. He didn't have anything to say about that, so he switches and starts talking about mining accidents, which are not the subject under discussion.
Great, let's do it. Thank you. So, now you want a real answer. So I'm telling you what the problem is, and I'm telling you how they're trying to mislead you to get the rich even more benefits.
No,
By the way,
he's trying to just strong-arm the debate, because he doesn't have anything actual to say, so he's just trying to divert it as much off as he can.
you want to talk about welfare queens. The capital gains
Again, now,
leads to, there's no reason
welfare queens. No one's talking about this, Cenk.
sign up right now. Clinton $225,000 for their health? No, they're looking to corrupt her. They did that 3 times, $675,000. Millions upon millions
Cenk.
going to Hillary Clinton, going to Bill Clinton. Okay, so my point, but Dinesh, yes, they can do that, Dinesh. But if Wolfpack wins and we get that constitutional amendment, you're going to have public financing that says yes, Hillary Clinton, you can have that corruption, but we are going to have an even debate. So you will have X amount of money, and your Republican counterpart will have X amount of money, and we will hear you both out without one of you buying a larger mic.
Right, so this is exactly what Hillary says. I call it the stop me before I steal again principle. Hillary says, I would like to be honest, but we are in a dishonest process. And therefore, my dishonesty is simply playing along with the system as it exists now. And so therefore, to propose some hypothetical future rule when we are dealing with the queen of corruption right now, the question I want Cenk to answer, and let's watch him duck this one, can any progressive in America in good conscience vote for the queen of corruption, Hillary Clinton?
Okay. So first of all, here we go with loaded questions. So will you vote for the queen of corruption? I can't tell if that question is loaded. When did you stop beating your wife? That's one of the...
Cenk, who earlier in this debate said he spent a year talking about how corrupt Hillary Clinton is, now has a semantical problem with her being called the queen of corruption.
Those questions. Although, if you go into your divorce records, all right.
So she's not the queen of corruption. This is what I mean by covering for her. She's not the queen of corruption.
No. So I'm going to tell you, look, when you get the general election day, and I get a ton of criticism from Democrats for this, general election day is the least relevant day. Primaries are more important. Fixing the system is more important. Getting a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics is more important. But when you give me a person who I think is systemically corrupt and a monster who's racist, bigoted, and has no earthly idea what the economy's about, and might crash the entire global
has
economy.
no idea about the economy, but he makes it work pretty well for himself.
And then if I vote for the person who's systemically corrupt, you go, ha ha, I got you. No, you didn't get me. You nominated a monster. It's your fault, not my fault.
Let me,
as if Hillary wasn't nominated, as if they didn't nominate a monster.
We're coming to the close of our time here, so I've one last question.
Can I just get him on the record in the same way, but without it being loaded? Are you for getting money out of politics?
I would like to see politics. Look, to me, the problem with
And as usual, Dinesh explains this perfectly, but the Pavlovian dog whistle crowd has an issue.
I can see where this is going, but let it
quick
finish.
answer. Quick answer.
Getting money out of politics, I think, is a stupid phrase. Here's why. Hold on.
Yes, like, here's another stupid phrase liberals use. The loopholes in the tax code. There's no box in the tax code where you just check it and then you don't have to pay shit. It's based off complicated, oh, well, you bought this, you donated this, you made this, you got money from here, there's this, and that. If you claim this, you deduct this. It's like a game, and if you're better at playing the game than the next person, you get more off. Someone who wanted to simplify that, Donald Trump, everyone has a problem with him because he's rich and he must just be doing it to make rich people richer.
Because he likes money in politics.
Hold on a second. No. That's not the reason. People can get involved in politics in different ways. Let's take two guys. One guy who's
And this is an amazing example from Dinesh.
got a normal job, he works, let's say, 50 hours a week. Another guy who's not working. And they both support opposite candidates. One supports the Republican, one supports the Democrat. Now, the guy who's not working goes, I'll volunteer for 8 hours and will work for my candidate. The guy who has a job goes, I'm going to give 5% of my salary to the candidate I support because I'm working all day. I can't go knock door to doors, but I'm using my money, which is my stored labor, and I'm putting it behind the guy I believe in. Cenk goes, the second guy who's using his money is a corrupt crook. We got to get him out of politics and leave the unemployed guy who's got all the free time. To me, that's not democracy. That's not democracy.
So that's a way of saying liberals are bums who don't work.
No,
That's
no,
a way.
I
And
didn't-
then
I
secondly,
wasn't
Well, Bernie Sanders.
going
saying,
there.
oh, it's just a plumber giving 5% of his salary. He's working really hard. Ignore the Koch brothers putting $900 million into this campaign.
So let me just pivot to the last part here, and I'm glad both of you.
Look, you say the Koch brothers, I say Soros. We know about all this.
I'll get them both out. Let's get them both out.
Yet, who's the one that hasn't taken any contributions? Oh, the racist, bigoted monster.
So I think there is a shared. I'm glad both of you agree that we do need reforms in our campaign finance system, and that the
All right, well, that's enough of that. So, this was me delving into Cenk Uyghur's ridiculousness. I hope everyone who wanted to see me cover some Young Turk stuff enjoyed this. I'll try to do a few more, but if you really want to see them ripped apart, Atheism is Unstoppable. Check his channel, because he has turned it into a beautiful art form. Check the links below. I put out some new music, echoscaperecords.bandcamp.com. Subscribe to the channel. Hope everyone enjoyed. Have a good one. Take care.